you. If we've not met before, I'm Frankie. It's a pleasure to have you. We'll be going through mat Pilates today. So perhaps that's familiar to you, perhaps it's not. It really doesn't matter. I'll explain everything as clearly as I can. And if you've got questions, please ask me. So make your way onto your mat or wherever you're going to set yourself up for today. If your wrists or knees tend to get a bit sore, then make sure there's some extra cushioning underneath them, either by a towel or by rolling up your mat a couple of times. And then cat stretch the body. So that's rounding the spine, looking between the legs, looking upward towards your belly button. And then you let the belly hang out and soften, keep the arms stiff, and lift the chest up, lift the tailbone up. Round the body. Really tuck the chin so the back of the neck lengthens. Drop the belly down, lift the chest up, lift the tailbone up. If you're particularly tight through the shoulders, widen the grip of the hands so they go out to the edges of the mat. And if it's your lower back that's more stiff, then spend a bit more time in the rounded shape and push the buttocks back further towards the heels. There's a little bit more time to be spent on the wrists, so if they do get sore, then roll up the mat so you've got extra padding. Another way to alleviate some of the pressure is to claw the finger pads into the mat. So it'd be like you're trying to make your fingernails look bloodless. Tuck the right knee in underneath you. So you're rounded, floating the right foot off the floor, trying to get the nose and the knee to touch. And then stretch the right leg out to straight. If you feel particularly wobbly, you can put the right toe on the floor. If you feel balanced enough, you can lift it up a little bit. Tuck the right knee in underneath you. Stretch it out to straight. Notice that when the heaviness of the leg goes out behind you, it starts to drop the belly down naturally. Allow that to happen a small amount, but also draw the belly button in. So pressing the leg out on an exhale will help you to contract the abdominals. That's so that we get the length of the leg out behind you and some work for the abdominals to hold your spine steady. There's nothing wrong with letting the belly go all the way down and lifting the leg up, which would look something like that. It's just increased extension through the spine and a little bit less work for the leg. Tuck it in, press it away. Last 5. Tuck the chin as well as tucking the knee. And 1. So we're going to head over to the other side and do that. If your wrists are sore or you just need a break, come up and roll them out. You can do that any time throughout any of the sequences. Left leg in and underneath you, round. Press out, grip the butt cheek, reach out through the toes. In and underneath you, press out. Lots of wobbles are really normal, so don't panic if that's happening. Just go slightly slower, rest the toes on the floor, and then you can start to lift them up and off when it feels more stable. If you tuck on an inhale and then press the leg to straight on an exhale, you'll have the advantage of the abdominals already contracting in the way that we'd like. Last 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Nicely done. Right. Flip onto your backs now, please. Before you go to laying down, have the legs out in front of you and then press the heels together, take the big toes slightly apart. So that will help you to stick the legs together as one unit, squeeze them as tight as you can. Then take the arms out in front and roll yourself back towards the mat. Arms overhead, which in this case means fingernails on the floor. Arms to the ceiling, tuck the chin, squeeze the legs, and then sit up and reach the fingers forward towards the toes. So a pulsing sort of action. Roll back and sit up. The harder you can hold the legs against each other, the more supported you'll feel. It's also completely okay to change how you get up, just so that you can do more reps. So that would look like bending the knees and perhaps using your own legs as a climbing pole to help you get up. Straighten them on the way out, roll back. Perhaps going quicker is what you need, so you throw the arms more, which helps you to get up because it's a bit more momentum. Make the torso pretty heavy, so you're trying to reach the fingers well past the toes. Don't worry if they're anywhere near that or not, just that as a general aim will help. And you keep the chin tucked. Next time you're down, stay down. Bend the knees for a moment, bring the hands behind your head and curl the head and shoulders up. You're going to stay curled up as long as that's comfortable for the neck. One knee at a time, bring them in against you. So thighs are close against you, which pushes your back close to the floor. Then shift the legs out to tabletop, which is knee above hip, ankle in line with knee. If that significantly changed how it feels around your lower back, please bring the legs closer to you again. If it doesn't, leave them at tabletop. Two legs out to straight, bend the legs to tabletop. It's not a huge action, but we'll do enough of it that you feel it. And it's about learning how to control where you are in space. So legs at tabletop, legs out in front of you. As long as you can maintain some sort of sense of closeness of your back to the floor, the way to judge that is, does it still feel like a belly exercise, not a back exercise? Then you can test out taking the legs lower in front of you. So lower is more load. Only worthwhile adding more load if you can keep it a belly feeling exercise, not one that pulls on your back. Firm hold of the head. When you're pressing the legs out in front of you, also squeeze the heels against each other. Last 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Bend the knees, plant the feet on the floor. For this variation of lifting the hips up, I want you to have toes up in the air, so just the bulb of the heels pressing down to the floor. And then squeeze the buttocks, lift the hips up, dig the heels into the floor as if you're going to crumple the mat in between your head and your heels. And hold yourself. Arms pressed down on the floor, either palms up or palms down, or elbows bent is a good one for bracing. And I just want you to hold and see if you can get more sensation through the back of the legs by digging the heels down and lifting the toes, and more gripping of the buttocks. And see how long you can hold that before it starts to drift into your lower back. And when that happens, tuck the tailbone more, which means maybe you lower slightly but grip the buttocks harder. Last 3, 2, 1. Roll yourself down. Hands behind the head again, so you can comfortably curl the head and shoulders up. 2 legs in against you, and then try and rock the tailbone up and off the floor by pulling the knees into you. The more you allow the shins to swing up to the ceiling, the more momentum you've got on your side. So use that if you find it a challenge. If it's not very challenging, then you increase it by trying to tuck the heels into your buttocks and keep them there. So there's far less swinging and it's more of a smooth rock of the knees to you, and then rolling the spine back down. As the weight of the legs come towards you, it will generally push the head back. So you're going to be ready for that by pulling hard on the back of the head, anticipating the extra weight. Knees together, thighs as close together as you can get them. Rock and roll. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Plant the feet down. Make the arms comfortable, so bent or straight arms. Knees wider than hips this time. Lift up and stay up. In this one, you'll probably be able to get more height comfortably. And by comfortably, I mean it's about even work. That either feels like hard work everywhere or not much at all. Both of those are a win. If you've got a significant pinch in your lower back, then lower the shape slightly. If you're unsure whether you've got the back of the legs working, lift the toes again and dig the heels down into the floor. And then grip the buttocks. Absolutely nothing wrong with getting the hands around the hips or the lower back to help you stay up here. Sometimes it's just a very small amount of support that you require to keep doing the exercise. And I'm not interested in whether you're making this look high. I want you to distribute the load evenly. So really close to the floor, but an even feeling is much better. Squeeze the buttocks, dig the heels into the mat. Smooth out the breath, particularly if you're holding it because you're concentrating. Last 5. And curl down, stay down. Hands hold the head again, please. Straighten the legs upward towards the ceiling. Your best effort of straight, they could well be bent and that would be normal. And then pull them a little bit closer to you. So it's just a small amount of what we were trying to do before, rocking the tailbone up and off. Hold that. Open the legs as wide apart as they'll go, and then bring them back together. Pull them apart, pull them back together. So that is different to just letting the legs flop out to whatever the hip range will allow. Deliberately try and push something on the outside of each foot and then push something back together between them. Firm hold of the head. Do your best to straighten at the knee, which is as your legs pull apart from each other, keep trying to reach the toes further away, and that'll help you to straighten the knee. Still very normal to be visually observing a bent knee, even when you're trying really hard. Last 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Press the feet down, knees bent, and take the feet wider than the mat. Drop the knees both to one side, so like a windscreen wiper action, side to side, and try and push the knees as far as you can to the floor, as long as it's not pulling nastily in your lower back. Twisting can sometimes cause a bit of pain. Stop within the range that feels okay. It can be a challenge, but painful, not much point doing that. Last 5, switch side to side. Leave the feet roughly where they are, so they're wider than the mat, knees are bent. Take the fingers overhead, then to the ceiling, tuck the chin, and try and sit up and reach your fingers forward and through the legs, knees wide as they can be. There is a lot of stuff that could make that difficult for you, so don't panic if that felt rubbish. Roll down as smooth as you can, arms overhead, and then throw them forward if you need more assistance to get up. Remember, you can always use the back of your own legs as a sort of climbing post. If you're tight in the lower back or tight in the hips, it's really challenging to fold your body in this way. And it might be the sort of challenging that just feels incredibly irritating to you. Do your best to stick with it and make it smoother on the way down than it is on the way up. Support the head and neck if you'd like to by having the hand behind the head. Make the chin the first thing to tuck and the very last thing to untuck in the process. Next time you come up, go a little slower, and when you're almost there, lift the feet off, so you bend the knees and bring them to you, still wide so your arms end up inside of the knees, and then put the feet back down, roll down. So that's the second layer. If you don't like it, you can do the previous one where you're reaching forward, but up, lift the feet off so the knees are wider than your arms, and then roll back. You'll start to work it out in terms of where's your balance point. So there'll be some degree of your torso lifting forward where it feels better or easier to lift the legs than others. Make the chin the first thing to tuck and the last thing to untuck. Your brain might have forgotten that idea because I gave it something new. Last 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Come up and change positions. So we've done a lot of rounding for the spine. Now we're going to head into some extension. So hands roughly where they were at the beginning, so slightly wider than your shoulders, a little bit turned out if your shoulders are stiff. And then wriggle the knees backwards, so their knees are further back than your hip bones, and bring the legs together. Push hard against the floor with the hands. Start to lift the chest forward and lower the hips. As low as you want to, it's up to you how that degree is in terms of how it feels in your lower back. Then shift yourself backward, buttocks towards heels, but don't allow your hands to come with you. So if they start to slide, then that's only as far as you're going to go. Come forward, squeeze the legs against each other. Chest up first, then lower the hips. If you were just watching this without listening to the verbal cues, it very much looks like the hips are the important part of this. They're the biggest kind of change that you see. But to get an even load through the spine, you have to do a lot more effort with the upper body before you let the heaviness of the hips take over. So drive the hands down into the floor, try and push your ribs forward against the front of your shirt and let your collarbone start to turn up towards the ceiling. And all of that happens just a smidge before you let the hips drop. And I mean that drop, you don't have to control that. There'll be some degree of control that you do anyway, just to make your lower back feel okay. So you don't have to think about that a lot. If you're particularly vulnerable in the lower back, then keep a little kink at the hips, so you leave your buttocks slightly back behind you. Then you slowly ease your way into more extension by letting the hips get heavier. If you're feeling okay about it, then start rocking forward and back just a bit more quickly. And see if you can still arrange it so chest comes forward, arms press hard, and the hips are the second thing that happen. Last 3, 2, 1. Okay, flip to be long ways on the mat. If you have one, it doesn't matter if you don't, but it's just an easy way for me to guide where you are. So a Z sit is one leg in front of you and one leg out to the side. Is that one leg lined up with the long line of the mat, one shin lined up with the short edge. If it feels kind of awkward, you've probably done it right. If there's pain in your knees, then please let me know. Whatever leg is in front of you, so the shin that's towards the broad edge of the mat, lean forward over that, a hand on either side of the knee, and see if you can push up and lift your buttocks up and off the floor. If you're up, then tuck the tailbone under, squeeze the buttocks together to open out the front of the hips. Get yourself ready with the hands so you can slow down the descent to whatever degree you want. And then keep doing the up and down motion. If your knees or your hips are quite sensitive, it would be a good idea to just do a little bit of a lift and lower yourself back down. So your hands are never going to leave contact with the floor. Wise to have some sort of padding under the kneecaps. You wouldn't damage them if it was on a hard floor. It's just going to be really uncomfortable for you. So keep sliding back or grabbing yourself a towel until you're supported by the mat or supported by something else. The tucking of the tailbone is a curious one, kind of difficult to understand, because once you're up, your brain goes, well, I'm up, what else do I need to do? You've got the bugs up and off the floor, but there's still an action you can do. So it's pulling the top of the hips into you, or another way to think of it is that if you tuck the chin, how are you going to bring your groin more into view? What do you do with the hips there? Should result in you feeling like you're squeezing the buttocks more. And then lower down. So that make that the top of the movement every time. Use the hands a lot or a little, that's completely up to you. Five to go on this side. And down and stay down. Flip to the other side. It could be significantly different in terms of how it feels when you flip the legs. Not uncommon for one hip to be much stronger than the other or tighter. Lean forward over whatever leg is forward. Push yourself off the floor as much as you need to. Come up and tuck the tailbone. Come back down. If you've already solved for yourself that you could use something else around you, like a chair or a wall, that's fantastic. I said you could leave the hands on the floor and just do little ones, but maybe if there was something in front of you, you could use that to push down on, and you'd feel a little bit more comfortable about coming up to full height. Modifications like that, there's nothing special about it. Like, you don't need a professional to tell you how to do it. Just use your common sense. If you can kind of find your way into the shape, like, geez, I wish there was something I could lean on, go and get it. Tuck the tailbone under if you're coming up to the top. So hopefully you feel a bit more lengthening down the front of the hips or the inner thighs. But if you can notice that when you come up to the top and you squeeze the buttocks together, and that's really all you feel, that's still great. You would still be extending at the hip. It just maybe doesn't feel very strong to you. 5, 4, tuck the tailbone under. Use the hands as much or as little as you'd like. And 1, come down. Nice job. Bring your legs out in front of you. You need to set yourself up so that when you take your arms out wide, you're not going to hit anything. So I'm going to pivot slightly to make that happen. Legs straight. If you're really grippy at the front of the hips, please grab a cushion to slide under your buttocks or roll up your mat a few times. Wide with the arms slightly lower than your shoulders. Sit up tall, try and puff your chest forward a little bit, and then exhale, twist as far as you can in one direction. When you're there, do a couple of pulses by swinging the long arms. Come back to the middle, do a big inhale, puff the chest forward, and then exhale, twist, add in the pulses. Inhale, lean forward or puff the chest, exhale, twist. The reason I'm saying lean forward when you sit up tall is by the time you twist, everybody tends to lean backward. So if I lean you forward at the top, when you twist, you end up pretty upright through the spine, which is what we want. Upright spine and then a twisting one. Heaviness of the arms, reach out through the fingers so the arms are stiff, and then you're using that extra weight to give you a good crank in either direction. Big inhale, exhale. Now, if you couldn't find something to put under your buttocks or rolling the mat didn't help and your hips are screaming right now, bend the knees a little bit, which will both allow you to sit up taller and hopefully take some of the pain out of the hips. It's just that they're struggling to hold your pelvis in that tip. They're not weak. If your neck is feeling this, then probably you're trying to look past the back arm because that's a normal gaze for the eyes. Instead, look towards the front arm or just kind of vaguely out in front of you. Last couple, see if you can crank up the swing a little bit more. Split the legs wide as you can get them. It doesn't have to look impressively wide, just wherever you can. And sometimes physically lifting them and kind of scooching them out to the side is helpful. Fingers out in front of you so that they go towards the floor. Tuck the chin, so you're going to keep a rounded spine here for the final stretch. And then slide the fingers forward with the chin tucked and then slide them back towards you. Always a rounded spine. The most effective way to keep a hold of that is to tuck your chin in and blue tack it to your collarbones. Because as the fingers go out in front of you, your gaze wants to follow that. And if it does, then you're just slightly kinking at the back of the neck. So as far as you can go, if you're super tight around the hips or the back of the legs, it might be that you're up here with fingers out in front of you and you feel like you can't go anywhere. That's fine. Whatever range of motion you've currently got, you're just trying to add your body weight to it and push it a little bit more. Chin well tucked in. Pulse as far as you can. Try and push the back of the heels down towards the floor. Stiffen the legs by squeezing the thighs. Your chin completely tucked into your chest. Last 5. And 1. Cross the legs however is comfortable, or if you don't like crossing your legs, just take them out from that wide position. Clasp the hands behind you. Try and pull the shoulders together and then push the fists back. So if they touch the floor, let them touch. Just trying to stretch the chest a little bit. Take big breaths to fill up the front of your chest. Squeeze the shoulder blades together. And then relax that off and you are done. I hope that wherever you are, the sun is shining and you can get out and enjoy